Hello Ascenders, I am finally presenting the video on the Wanderers and also actually beginning on the Harvest. This perspective is based on my understanding of the Law of One, with also some input from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or Jehuti. To understand Wanderers, what they are, why they're here, who they may be, it's my belief that you should first understand a few things that have been presented regarding the Law of One, and I will be succinct and put the channeling in the description to see how that works. Those things are vibrations, frequencies, cycles, densities, and then the Wanderers and the Harvest. Okay, let's go. Let's understand vibrations and frequencies first. I would like to reconnect everyone to the quote from Nikola Tesla, who the raw material also mentions within his channelings. Nikola Tesla is widely quoted as saying, "If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration." Da Vinci Kids. YouTube channel has a good silly video on it for young kids, old kids too, like me. Vibration is things going back and forth. Frequency is a measure of how fast or slow those vibrations happen. We now know everything to be vibrating. It's the law of vibration, and it is now known that we are all vibrating at a different frequency. We might even tell someone we like their vibes or vibrations, which means the frequency that they vibrate at as opposed to someone or something else, right? We can also sense unseen emotions. These are vibrations felt at certain frequencies. These vibrations and frequencies are at all levels of our reality. All things from the smallest quanta to the largest, which is a string of galaxies called the Great Wall. See the link in the description. These vibrations and frequencies don't only pertain to physical matter like the Great Wall. They also pertain to the unseen components of our reality, quanta, or as qualia, feelings, and could include color and sound, in my opinion. It is also my opinion that we humans could also be considered as the energy in Tesla's statement. Sometimes we ourselves are vibrating at a high frequency, and sometimes we vibrate at a lower frequency. These unseen rates of vibration are perceived as a lower frequency could equate to fatigue and needing more rest or being in meditation. Higher frequency could equate to being highly focused or motivated, as in sports, or being manic. All matter seen physical and unseen and non-physical is vibrating at various frequencies. Unseen vibrations can be perceived as emotions and can represent everything from love to hatred and other polarities. It's obvious that we don't have to see vibrations to know that they exist. They are unseen, but they are felt. Could it be that there are other unseen vibrations that we are also feeling or perceiving on another level? Let's all start paying more attention to the frequency of the vibrations around us. Cycles and densities. Let's tackle cycles and densities next. Cycles and densities are very much unseen, like quanta or qualia, but on the macro level. And of course, wanderers are seen like galaxies are because we are composed of some physical matter. All are vibrating at different frequencies. Let's now zoom out a little bit and discuss the densities. From my understanding, densities are set time frames of evolutionary experience, very long time frames. Most seem to be fixed except the 3rd, 7th, and 8th densities, although the raw material didn't initially provide time frames for all the densities because raw was not asked. As an aside, Rudolf Steiner discusses evolution of humans on Earth, not Darwinian evolution, but mental, intellectual, and spiritual evolution and devolution. Maybe that will be another series at some point. Also, the densities of the Earth, 3rd to 4th, and its peoples, 3rd and some to 4th, are discussed at length in the raw material. My research has led me to believe that, although not specifically mentioned in the raw material, I can tell you that some people's density can regress to 2nd density. There are 8 densities that entities must cycle through to complete a cycle of evolution, so to speak. These densities align to various components of the evolutionary processes of spiritual reality. Let me describe these densities as the Law of One states them, and I've added within the following channelings the given lengths of the densities.
6.21 Questioner. Can you give me some kind of history of your social memory complex and how you became aware of the Law of One?
Ra, I am Ra. The path of our learning is graven in the present moment. There is no history, as we understand your concept. Picture, if you will, a circle of being. We know the Alpha and Omega as infinite intelligence. The circle never ceases. It is present. The densities we have traversed at various points in the circle correspond to the characteristics of cycles. First density is the cycle of awareness. The length of the density is 2 billion years. 2 billion years. Second density is the cycle of growth. The length of the density is 4,600,000,000 years, 4.6 billion years. Third density is the cycle of self-awareness. The length of the density is the choice of the third density entity. My understanding is that it can be a 25,000-year cycle or many billions of years. The choice is yours. Fourth density is the cycle of love or understanding. The length of the density is 30 million years. 30 million years. Fifth density is the cycle of light or wisdom. The length of the density was not requested or provided in the Law of One, the raw material, but was later provided in the conscious channeling of 9/4/2016. The length of the fifth density is 50 million years. 50 million years. Sixth density is the cycle of light-love, love-light, or unity. The length of the density is 75 million years. 75 million years. Seventh density is the gateway cycle. The length of the density was not requested or provided in the Law of One, the ray material, but was later provided in the conscious channeling of 9/4/2016. The length of the seventh density, the density of foreverness, has no measure. Eighth density is the octave which moves into a mystery we do not plumb.
Let me add also that within first through third densities is what we refer to as physical matter. We are able to see physical matter. Obviously, we are unable to see non-physical matter, which is condensed light outside of the light spectrum of our visual perception. First density is everything mineral. Second density is everything that moves except humans. For example, plants, insects, animals. Third density is human beings. Let's now zoom back in a little bit and discuss the cycles. There are many cycles, for example, the Mayan calendar yugas, and much is being written about them. You can explore them as I may in a future video. Cycles like the yuga cycles help us better understand Earth cycles. In my prior video, cycles of 25,000, 50,000, and 75,000 years were mentioned. You might recall mentions of lifespan and lifespan reduction within the last 25,000 years that might resonate with you regarding biblical writings. The Law of One considers specific 25,000-year periods as a cycle and sometimes as a major cycle. It also defines 3 consecutive 25,000-year cycles, with the end of the 75,000 years as the end of a major cycle of man's evolution. I would call this the real evolution of man. This major 75,000-year cycle is referred to as a cycle of experience. So we have had a review of vibrations and frequencies, densities, and cycles. In the 2 prior videos, we reviewed the laws or distortions of the Law of One. I'd like to tune our attention to the frequencies of the vibrations of the people who voluntarily join this third density cycle to assist other selves in their fundamental journey of ascension. The Wanderers. First mention of the term wanderer. In session 2.2, Ra mentions the term wanderer when describing its interaction with an 18th dynasty pharaoh. This entity, Akhenaten, became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration, and thus decreed the law of one. In session 11.25, Ra mentions another wanderer that was diverted from its mission after connecting with Ra to help humanity. That wanderer was Nikola Tesla. He came to free us from darkness, literal darkness with free energy. In session 12.26, Ra states that wanderers are from all reaches of creation and are here to serve because they are answering a call for help. After being asked in session 12.27, Ra states that 65 million had come by that time. Yes, 65 million people on or having been on Earth were from somewhere else, here incarnated to help humanity progress spiritually. By the 1980s, some are from 4th density and the largest group is from 6th density. Ra goes on to say in 12.28 that the desire to serve must be distorted towards a great deal of purity of mind, and what you may call foolhardiness or bravery, depending upon your distortion, complex judgment. The challenge danger of the wanderer is that it will forget its mission, become karmically involved, and thus be swept into the maelstrom from which it had incarnated to aid the destruction. To become karmically involved, one would have to act in a consciously unloving manner and action with other beings, acting in an unlovingly manner. That's a lot of people, I would say. So if you feel you are a wanderer, be very mindful of your intentions and actions, always remembering that nobody is perfect. And wanderers, because of their higher nature, have some kind of handicap, difficulty, or feeling of alienation which is severe. Ra says the most common of these difficulties are alienation, the reaction against the planetary vibration by personality disorders, as you would call them, and body complex ailments indicating difficulty in adjustment to the planetary vibrations, such as allergies, as you would call them. To correct these imbalances, Ra states in 12.31, the self-healing distortion is affected through realization of the intelligent infinity resting within. This is blocked in some way in those who are not perfectly balanced in bodily complexes. The blockage varies from entity to entity. It requires the conscious awareness of the spiritual nature of reality, if you will, and the corresponding pourings of this reality into the individual mind-body-spirit complex for healing to take place. Not surprisingly, as mentioned in a prior video, these three spiritual researchers were told by Ra that they are also wanderers. Other wanderers were said to be Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, amongst others. To get a little deeper into the wanderers and their situation, I have to discuss the negative side a bit. Ra describes the negative side as coming from the Orion Confederation. The primary concept of the Orion Confederation, as I understand it from session 715, is one of elitism through separation and enslavement of non-elites to build an empire for elites. So the Orion Confederation is at war with the Confederation of Planets. My understanding is that on Earth the war is over us. From my limited perspective, ultimately it is for our consciousness. The two warring sides are denoted in the law of one as service to others versus service to self. The service to others side, the Confederation of Planets, requires that you consider improving oneself and must also attempt to improve the lives of others, or what the law might term, other selves. This is because in the law of one, we are all one, which means another person is a mirror of yourself and thus an other self who you should also help, at least to some degree. The service to self side, the Orion Confederation, requires that one only improve oneself while utilizing others to improve your life, and thereby theoretically improve the other self by their acquiescence to your rule. This again is because in the law of one, we are all one, which means another person is a mirror of yourself, and thus an other self who should align with you, in this case, totally. Or you may be the one who is doing the dictating. the polarities. Yeah, I'll quote the following passages from the raw material.
19.17 Questioner. Can you tell me what bias creates their momentum toward the chosen path of service to self?
Ra, I am Ra. We can speak only in metaphor. Some love the light, some love the darkness. It is a matter of the unique and infinitely various Creator choosing and playing among its experiences as a child upon a picnic. Some enjoy the picnic and find the sun beautiful, the food delicious, the games refreshing, and glow with the joy of creation. Some find the night delicious, their picnic being pain, difficulty, sufferings of others, and the examination of the perversities of nature. These enjoy a different picnic. All these experiences are available. It is free will of each entity which chooses the form of play, the form of pleasure.
19.18 Questioner. I assume that an entity on either path can decide to choose paths at any time and possibly retrace steps, the path changing being more difficult the farther along is gone. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The further an entity has what you would call polarized, the more easily this entity may change polarity, for the more power and awareness the entity will have. Those truly helpless are those who have not consciously chosen but who repeat patterns without knowledge of the repetition or the meaning of the pattern.
Would you agree that there are truly many out there who seem helpless? I'll go into more detail in the next video regarding what the Law of One calls the harvest. Back to the wanderers. They have decided to come to third density Earth to answer the call of people on Earth who say they are in need of help to overcome the darkness on Earth. The service to self side, I don't know if you caught it or not, but it was previously mentioned that the truly helpless have not consciously chosen. What is it that they have not consciously chosen? They have not consciously chosen a polarity of service, to be of service to others, or to be of service to self. This is the primary decision that Earth's people, being third density beings, have to make while in third density. All other third and later density experiences flow from this decision, but the default is service to self. If you have not consciously decided to be of help to others, then you are service to self. And this has serious implications and consequences, as does being service to others. So based on this understanding, you could be a nice person, a churchgoer, etc. But stay to yourself and only make sure you are okay, then you are service to self. One must consciously state to the universe that they are service to others, or consistently consciously live a service to others life to be considered service to others. One must consciously state to the universe that they are service to self, or consistently consciously live a service to self life to be considered service to self. All the people described as wanderers earlier were obviously polarized as service to others. They were about helping not only themselves but also other people. The harvest, I keep mentioning consequences. I wanted to hold this information on the Law of One until the next video, but it is not possible. To understand what the Wanderer has risked for humanity, I must share it now. And it has to do specifically with the harvest. The harvest is the ascension, or the repeating, if you will. This is the understanding from the Law of One. So once you've consciously decided or consistently demonstrated a polarity, service to others or service to self, or you've not decided, you are repeatedly tested on this decision through the catalyst that is put before you. And that's because the catalyst is basically driving a test. If you pass the test, you get points. Yes, no BS, it's a point system, but the points given are light for the service to other side and dark brightness for the service to self side. Dark brightness is light to the service to self side. Dark brightness is a term that I've appropriated from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or Jehudi, as I heard told he prefers to be called by Dr. Gibson. And this is why there are what you perceive as good, bad, and neutral people. Unfortunately, the third density reality only recognizes the two polarities. So again, many people think they line up in the good column, but according to the law of one, they don't. It's not my system, I just have to ascend by it. And this point system is what drives what is called ascension in the harvest. The harvest is when all the third density entities' light is evaluated to see what density they belong in. As you might have heard for decades, or maybe not, I'm told by many, that Earth was moving into the fifth dimension or getting promoted to a higher vibration or something like that. And you would have to increase your vibrations or get left behind. As I have been into metaphysics since the mid-1970s, this is something I heard but didn't really understand or know whether to even believe. Things began to crystallize when I took metaphysics and Black history training from Brother Dr. Delbert Blair in Chicago in the late 1980s. And it was not until 2018 that I was led to the Law of One, where I finally fully began to understand somewhat what this meant, at least from the Law of One, the raw material perspective. So as Earth is or has already ascended, Earth, the creator, the creation, God, or whatever you want to call it, is giving us some time to either catch up with the Earth and ascend to what some call the fifth dimension, or to fourth density, which is what it is called in the Law of One. Fourth density, again, is the density of love or understanding. We have been in third density, which is the density of self-awareness, yearning and reaching for love, so that we can begin to move into fourth density. Has anyone out there been looking for true love? If you have truly found love, you are very likely going to ascend. Now I have to go back to the cycles we discussed earlier. The 3 to 25,000 year cycles culminate at the end of 75,000 years. Well, that has a lot to do with your being able to ascend or repeat another cycle to position you for another ascension test or light test. The cycles are time frames in which you have the ability to accumulate light or, again, dark brightness. So guess what? You are all at least 75,000 years old. At least from an Earth perspective, you are all, of course, actually eternal beings. During the major cycle of 75,000 years, you have accumulated light and dark brightness. And guess what? There is a formula for ascension. Did you catch it earlier that you can ascend into the service to others, light side, or into the service to self, dark brightness side? Yes, the dark side has ascension levels too, to a certain point. This is because this is a positive universe. This formula is very interesting. I'll provide a quote from the conscious channeling to begin with. The choice.
Channeling Conscious Channeling, 2005, October 15th, 2005. Now, each of these densities take a considerable length of what this instrument would call time. Your density, the third density, is the shortest of all densities, being a bit over 75,000 of your years in length. And if you are familiar with the study of astrology, it is equal to the age of 3 of the signs of the zodiac. You are now ending one age and beginning another. The age of Pisces is giving way to the age of Aquarius. This 75,000-year cycle is called a density of choice. You asked, how can I use the concept of densities? The most important way that we know of to use this concept is to realize the purpose of the density which you now inhabit. The purpose of the density you now inhabit is to create an environment within which, with complete free will and no compulsions, because of knowledge that you have but only through those realizations that come from within, or, as this instrument would say, by faith alone, you make a certain choice upon which hinges your path through fourth density, fifth density, and part of sixth density. The choice is the one of your polarity. There are 2 choices of ways to go, or paths that you may choose within third density. One path is the path of service to others. The other path is the path of service to self. Either path, followed persistently and with dedication, will lead you to graduation from third to fourth density. In order to graduate from third density in the path of service to others, It is necessary for you so to make choices that you end up being the kind of person that will choose service to others over service to self over half the time. That is, 51% of the time or more. A grade or level of choice of 51% or higher is that level of polarity which will qualify you for graduation to fourth density on the path to service to others. If you choose, on the other hand, to follow service to self in order to graduate in the negative polarity, it will be necessary for you to make choices that create a person who ends up choosing to be of service to the self 95% of the time or higher. That is, to have a level of service to others that is 5% or less. We realize that it may seem to be off balance that such a low positive grade would guarantee graduation, since 51% is not usually considered a passing grade, whereas in order to graduate service to self, an entity must have an almost perfect score of 95% or more of service to self orientation. However, we assure you that it is as difficult to achieve unselfish choices over half the time as it is to achieve selfish choices 95% of the time. The reason is that the culture in which you are embedded is basically a service to self culture, thereby creating an outstanding and substantial bias which must be overcome by those who wish to vibrate in unconditional love or service to others polarity. Choosing to be of service to others at the expense of the self is difficult to speak about, and within the confines of this question and this session of working, we would only point in the direction of speaking about it by saying that there are many examples of those who have chosen service to others at the sacrificial level.
This choice for earthbound entities is from light or dark brightness accumulated over the three 25,000-year cycles or 75,000 years. Wanderers can choose to provide service in 1, 2, or all 3 major cycles. The choice is very important, and even more so for wanderers. For wanderers are entities that are coming from higher densities to assist third density earthlings, because earthlings know deep within that something is wrong, something is not right. And these wanderers have a lot more to lose than those who are earthbound, shall we say. Especially now as we are at the end of the cycle of many cycles, which means that if you do not ascend now, you will be waiting for a very long time to relive an Earth like the third density incarnation to acquire the light or dark brightness that you need to ascend. Continued from the conscious channeling of October 15th, 2005.
It is your choice. How do you wish to express the love that created you? What do you feel is the truth and the heart of your being? Do you wish to follow entities such as Jesus the Christ, Gautama Buddha, or that guru that speaks to you of unconditional love? Or do you wish to follow those exemplars of the negative path which will teach you how to purify your ego and create a universe in which all things lead to you and all other entities exist to serve you?
Those are the paths. These wanderers all came here to serve the service to others polarity, but they have free will to not remember or to even change their minds and choose the service to self polarity. Once you have chosen a polarity, the next determination is whether you will ascend or not ascend at the end of the final cycle, which is very probably where we are right now. This is the reason I am doing these videos, so that those who might think themselves as possible wanderers can continue or begin to do the work to acquire or maintain the light they have acquired and secure enough to ascend during this final cycle of this 75,000-year cycle. Of course, their accumulation of light means that more wanderers and earthbound non-wanderers have many more examples to see and follow and hopefully choose their polarity. And if they acquire enough light to ascend, then they ascend, if ascension is their intention. Earthbounds. So who are the earthbounds or non-wanderers? I have to get into the real evolution to explain that. For this, we have to bring the densities and the cycles together. Each density is a cycle of evolution. So the non-wanderer or earthbound being has come through all the Earth's evolutionary cycles, possibly from a photon particle to becoming a human being. If they are to stay with the Earth, then they must ascend, as Earth has ascended. If they do not ascend, they must go to another third density planet to reincarnate on and attempt to achieve ascension. If they are to continue their evolutionary progression, they must ascend into the fourth density with the Earth. Here's a bit more detail on the consequences of not ascending during this cycle. Consequences are subject to change. The easily missed reality is that if first density is 2 billion years and second density is 4.6 billion years, then even if the being doesn't fully realize it, they will be starting from well prior to a human and evolving into a human to repeat third density again. Most will go back to being a second density being, depending on their light or dark brightness, and can easily have 2.5 plus billion years before they become human again. That's the rub. So get your light now. Get it now, please listen. Get it now. For wanderers, if you pass the third density light test, then you will return to your density and planet or go wherever you decide to go for your next experience. This harvest period, I've come to believe, can last around 1,000 years. Some may be able to reincarnate again before the end of the harvest and attain passing, but this is not probable due to the seniority system. Some wanderers who pass the harvest can also take another step within the light spectrum and actually advance to the next density from where they are, be it 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. And contrary to some belief, there are 7th density beings here who are also at great risk of getting stuck in negativity and having to repeat third density in 2.5 plus billion years. I actually know of one, and I certainly hope that doesn't happen. Creator bless. More Wanderers information. For those who like or prefer the actual channelings, I provide this information in the following channelings: the Industrial Revolution Free Will Third Density Effects on Wanderers, Negative Service to Self-Wanderers, Why Wanderers Come, Percent of Awakened Wanderers, Number of Wanderers up to 2018, and Post-Third Density Work.
26.13 Questioner. Did the Confederation then step up its program of helping planet Earth sometime late in this last major cycle? It seems that they did from the previous data, especially with the Industrial Revolution. Can you tell me the attitudes and reasonings behind this step up? Is there any reason other than that they just wanted to produce more leisure time in the last, say, 100 years of the cycle? Is this the total reason?
Ra, I am Ra. This is not the total reason. Approximately 200 of your years in the past, as you measure time, there began to be a significant amount of entities who, by seniority, were incarnating for learned teaching purposes rather than for the lesser of the learned teachings of those less aware of the process. This was our signal to enable communication to take place. The wanderers which came among you began to make themselves felt at approximately this time, firstly offering ideas or thoughts containing the distortion of free will. This was the prerequisite for further wanderers, which had information of a more specific nature to offer. The thought must precede the action.
32.9 Questioner. I am assuming from what we have previously looked at, we have on Earth today, and have had in the past 4th, 5th, and 6th density wanderers. As they come into incarnation in the physical of this density for a period as a wanderer, what types of polarizations with respect to these various rays do they find affecting them? Can you tell me that?
Ra, I am Ra. I believe I grasp the thrust of your query. Please ask further if this answer is not sufficient. 4th density wanderers, of which there are not many, will tend to choose those entities which seem to be full of love or in need of love. There is the great probability of entities making errors in judgment due to the compassion with which other selves are viewed. The 5th density wanderer is one who is not tremendously affected by the stimulus of the various rays of other self, and in its own way offers itself when a need is seen. Such entities are not likely to engage in the, shall we say, custom of your peoples called marriage, and are very likely to feel an aversion to childbearing and child-raising due to the awareness of the impropriety of the planetary vibrations relative to the harmonious vibrations of the density of light. The sixth density, whose means of propagation you may liken to what you call fusion, is likely to refrain, to a great extent, from the bisexual reproductive programming of the bodily complex, and instead seek out those with whom the sexual energy transfer is of the complete fusion nature, insofar as this is possible in manifestation in third density.
36.15 Questioner. Well then, let's say that when Himmler, for instance, reaches 6th density negative, at the beginnings of 6th density negative, at this time, would it be the case that an entity would realize that his higher self is 6th density positively oriented and for that reason, make the jump from negative to positive orientation?
Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The 6th density negative entity is extremely wise. It observes the spiritual entropy occurring due to the lack of ability to express the unity of 6th density, thus loving the Creator and realizing at some point that the Creator is not only self, but other self as self. This entity consciously chooses an instantaneous energy reorientation so that it may continue its evolution.
36.16 Questioner. Then the 6th density entity, who has reached that point in positive orientation, may choose to become what we call a wanderer and move back. I am wondering if this ever occurs with a negatively oriented 6th density entity. Do any move back as wanderers?
Ra, I am Ra. Once the negatively polarized entity has reached a certain point in the wisdom density, it becomes extremely unlikely that it will choose to risk the forgetting, for this polarization is not selfless, but selfish, and, with wisdom, realizes the jeopardy of such wandering. Occasionally, a 6th density negative entity becomes a wanderer in an effort to continue to polarize towards the negative. This is extremely unusual.
36.17 Questioner. Then what is the motivation for the... Oh, let me finish that question first. What is the motive? What is the mechanism that this unusual 6th density entity would wish to gain to polarize more negatively through wandering?
Ra, I am Ra. The wanderer has the potential of greatly accelerating the density whence it comes in its progress in evolution. This is due to the intensive life experiences and opportunities of the third density. Thusly, the positively oriented wanderer chooses to hazard the danger of the forgetting in order to be of service to others by radiating love of others. If the forgetting is penetrated, the amount of catalyst in third density will polarize the wanderer with much greater efficiency than shall be expected in the higher and more harmonious densities. Similarly, the negatively oriented wanderer dares to hazard the forgetting in order that it might accelerate its progress in evolution in its own density by serving itself in third density, by offering to other selves the opportunity to hear the information having to do with negative polarization.
36.24 Questioner. I'll just ask one little short one that you may not be able to answer before the final. The short one is, can you tell me what percentage of the wanderers on Earth today have been successful in penetrating the memory block and becoming aware who they are? And then finally, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact?
Ra, I am Ra. We can approximate the percentage of those penetrating intelligently their status. This is between 8.5% and 9.75%. There is a larger percentile group of those who have a fairly well-defined, shall we say, symptomology, indicating to them that they are not of this, shall we say, insanity. This amounts to a bit over 50% of the remainder. Nearly 1/3 of the remainder are aware that something about them is different. So you see, there are many gradations of awakening to the knowledge of being a wanderer. We may add that it is to the middle and first of these groups that this information will, shall we say, make sense.
52.7 Questioner. Am I correct then in assuming that discipline of the personality, knowledge of self and control, shall I say, in strengthening of the will, would be what any fifth density entity would see as those things of importance?
Ra, I am Ra. In actuality, these things are of importance in third through early seventh densities. The only correction in nuance that we would make is your use of the word control. It is paramount that it be understood that it is not desirable or helpful to the growth of the understanding, may we say, of an entity by itself to control thought processes or impulses except where they may result in actions not consonant with the law of one. Control may seem to be a shortcut to discipline, peace, and illumination. However, this very control potentiates and necessitates the further incarnative experience in order to balance this control or repression of that self which is perfect. Instead, we appreciate and recommend the use of your second verb in regard to the use of the will, acceptance of self, forgiveness of self, and the direction of the will. This is the path towards the disciplined personality. Your faculty of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. You cannot ascribe to this faculty too much importance. Thus, it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. There is great danger in the use of the will as the personality becomes stronger, for it may be used even subconsciously in ways reducing the polarity of the entity.
52.8 Questioner. I sense possibly a connection between what you just said and why so many wanderers have selected harvest time on this planet to incarnate. Am I correct? This is a vague notion.
Ra, I am Ra. It is correct that, in the chance to remember that which has been lost in the forgetting, there is a naivety of opportunity for positive polarization. We believe this is the specific thrust of your query. Please ask further if it is not.
52.9 Questioner. Well, I would just include the question as to why time of harvest is selected by so many wanderers as time for incarnation.
Ra, I am Ra. There are several reasons for incarnation during harvest. They may be divided by the terms self and other self. The overriding reason for the offering of these brothers and sisters of sorrow in incarnative states is the possibility of aiding other selves by the lightening of the planetary consciousness distortions and the probability of offering catalysts to other selves, which will increase the harvest. There are two other reasons for choosing this service which have to do with the self. The wanderer, if it remembers and dedicates itself to service, will polarize much more rapidly than is possible in the far more etiolated realms of higher density catalyst. The final reason is within the mind-body-spirit totality, or the social memory complex totality, which may judge that an entity or members of a societal entity can make use of third density catalysts to recapitulate a learning teaching which is adjudged to be less than perfectly balanced. This especially applies to those entering into and proceeding through sixth density, wherein the balance between compassion and wisdom is perfected.
65.11 Questioner. Well, this entire scenario over the next, shall I say, 20 years seems to be aimed at producing an increase in seeking and an increase in the awareness of the natural creation, but also a terrific amount of confusion. Was it the pre-incarnative objective of many of the wanderers to attempt to reduce this confusion?
Ra, I am Ra. It was the aim of wanderers to serve the entities of this planet in whatever way was requested, and it was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole, thus ameliorating the effects of planetary disharmony and palliating any results of this disharmony. Specific intentions such as aiding in a situation not yet manifest are not the aim of wanderers. Light and love go where they are sought and needed, and their direction is not planned aforetimes.
65.12 Questioner. Then each of the wanderers here acts as a function of the biases he has developed in any way he sees fit to communicate or simply be in his polarity, to aid the total consciousness of the planet? Is there any, shall I say, more physical way that he aids in? What I mean is, do his vibrations somehow add to the process, just as electrical polarity, or charging a battery or something? Does that also aid the planet, just the physical presence of the wanderers?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct, and the mechanism is precisely as you state. We intended this meaning in the second portion of our previous answer. You may at this time note that, as with any entities, each wanderer has its unique abilities, biases, and specialties, so that from each portion of each density represented among the wanderers comes an array of pre-incarnative talents which then may be expressed upon this plane which you now experience, so that each wanderer, in offering itself before incarnation, has some special service to offer in addition to the doubling effect of planetary love and light and the basic function of serving as beacon or shepherd. Thus there are those of fifth density whose abilities to express wisdom are great. There are fourth and sixth density wanderers whose ability to serve as, shall we say, passive radiators or broadcasters of love and love light are immense. There are many others whose talents brought into this density are quite varied. Thus wanderers have three basic functions once the forgetting is penetrated, the first two being basic, the tertiary one being unique to that particular mind-body-spirit complex. We may note at this point, while you ponder the possibility-probability vortices, that although you have many items which cause distress and thus offer seeking and service opportunities, there is always one container in that store of peace, love, light, and joy. This vortex may be very small, but to turn one's back upon it is to forget the infinite possibilities of the present moment. Could your planet polarize towards harmony in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? Yes, my friends, it is not probable, but it is ever possible.
And that, my friends, is still a possibility, as we are all much stronger in our positive polarity than when this message was initially given in the early 1980s. Channeling Conscious Channeling 2016, September 4th, 2016.
Question 5. QO. I'm sure I speak for the whole group when I say thank you for joining this circle of seeking today. The final written query says, it's difficult for me to imagine work past third density. It seems if the veil is lifted, things would obviously be all one. With disharmony removed, it seems the work would be dauntingly slow. And it seems you would know what lessons you should want to approach. And it seems with the veil lifted, one would be able to instantly heal, learn, etc. Can you discuss the type of work done in densities past third and how it differs in time without the veil of forgetting?
Quo. I am QO, and I am aware of your query, my brother. Indeed, much truth has been spoken in this question, and the query is quite correct. This third density illusion is one which provides most intense catalyst to those within for it hides all the treasures and jewels of the creation from each within third density. Each must seek, according to its own best efforts and lights, that which is the highest and best that it knows. And each must work its way through the darkness, the difficulties, the doubts that constantly surround one within this illusion. Eventually, the light begins to shine within the mind, the heart, the spirit, and the entity goes forth with more sureness and more ability to conceive of and encompass the path upon which it travels. Eventually, the entity is able to graduate itself, shall we say, in the positive or the negative sense, and to leave the third density behind and enter the fourth density of love and understanding. And indeed, within the fourth density there is the understanding that this is a creation of love, a creation of unity made of light. So how do entities in the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh densities learn? You are correct that the process is much slower than within the third density illusion. Your illusion is only 75,000 years long, my friends. You may think that is a great span of time compared to the 70 that is your lot to exercise, and yet if you look within the fourth density, it is 30 million of your years. The fifth density is 50 million of your years. The sixth, 75 million of your years. The density of foreverness has no measure.
Channeling Conscious, Channeling 2018. March 3rd, 2018.
Fox. Kuo, I would like to ask, those of Ra told us that there were around 60 million wanderers on Earth in 1981. In the last channeling session, those of Kuo stated that many of you are from elsewhere to aid this planet in its transition to the fourth density, and that those of Kyuyo have knowledge of this type of experience, because many of you are portions of our own being and have gone forth through the veil of forgetting to join others of like mind and kind, to serve the one in the many within the earth planes. If you are able to tell us, roughly how many wanderers are there now in the Earth's population?
Kuo. I am Kuo, and am aware of your query, my sister. At this time, there are approximately 350 million of these entities who have incarnated within your Earth planes in order to offer their service to those of this planet who would request such. Many have come in recent times also from other third density planets who have made the graduation there and are incarnating in what you may call the doubly activated bodies, in order to be of service in helping this planet make its transition into the fourth density of love and understanding. The number of these entities exceeds that of the Wanderers, reaching nearly 500 million entities. Is there a further query, my sister?
Fox. Yes. If you can tell us, of those wanderers living on Earth at this time, can you tell us what proportion are members of social memory complexes within the Confederation, especially those of whom we most often communicate?
Kuo. I am Kuo, and am aware of your query, my sister. We can say that each of the wanderers that have incarnated within this planetary influence are indeed members of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the one infinite creator for this planetary entity that you call Earth, and which others refer to as Terra, is within the, shall we say, jurisdiction or bounds of responsibility of this Confederation.
Do you believe you could be a wanderer? Would you like to find out? There are several avenues, but one in particular that I can help with. Drop an email if you are interested in more information on that subject. Power and peace, love and light of the one infinite creator to you.